Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, one of our first lunch and learns here with Rob Kinslow. We're going to be talking about sustainable business leadership today. So I want to welcome everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. I know everyone's busy, especially at this time of year, and thank you, Rob, for being here. Just a little background on Rob. He's got a really diverse background. He's been a farmer. He's a former aircraft designer, a travel filmmaker, and he's been also now a wellness coach. And so he and I had some really great conversations about sustainability and the journey that we all take to become more and more sustainable. And the same thing is going to be true for businesses as well. And so we started talking about business leadership and how to help people and more people embrace the principles behind sustainability. And so I'm going to pass that on over to Rob, but I just want to say thank you, Rob, for offering your time and talent and ideas to help this process so that we can all grow together, learn together, and inspire each other to be more sustainable and have more sustainability lifestyle habits too.
Thank you, Tanya. Can everybody hear me? All right. So yes, what Tanya said is true. I've had many incarnations in this life. And here I am in Hawaii in the middle of the blue continent with you all. And one of my favorite topics is sustainability, and in particular with respect to business leadership. And the reason I say that is because through my experience giving talks about climate change and sustainability, I've come to the conclusion that business and faith groups are the two biggest networks on the planet. And concomitant with that, or like alongside accompanying that, means that they have the most influence. And so I've started to work in those two networks to influence them towards sustainability. And what we're going to talk about today is the combination of these three words, sustainable business leadership, but in the context of the age of consequences. And by the age of consequences, I mean the age that we're living in right now, in the sense that we have 250 years of human pollution and impact on the planet, and now we're reaping the consequences of those actions. So without any further ado, let me just get started, because we have a long time to go and a short time to get there. Let's see here. Is my clicker's not working. Okay, I'll use my mouse. All right. So the first slide I have here is the Earth as a canoe, because I want to set the context. You know, content creates context, and context creates content. And so the Earth really is a canoe, and we are really all in a canoe. If you study astrophysics or you read any of the latest cosmologists, you'll understand that there's no one else around like us. We are literally on a canoe in a sea of space. And so that lends context to our behavior and our practices. And so what I'm going to try to do with you today in this short talk is help you to have new eyes, basically. So if you are willing, be able to see the things that I see. I don't know how many of you remember seeing this picture, but I'm old enough to remember it as a boy. And this is a picture that Apollo, I think it was 12, took as they came around the moon and saw the Earth. And this was the very first picture of the Earth that we had seen from outside our frame of reference. And so it helped shape the environmental movement, helped shape all of us, because within 2 years of this picture becoming popular, it was the first viral picture of the Earth. The environmental movement started, and we started thinking of ourselves as a species that needed to take care of the planet and the home that we live in. And so, and this was even known, this kind of meta view, this kind of higher view of our own behavior, of our own self, and was known as early as 1948. And this guy, Sir Fred Hoyle, said, once a photograph of the Earth taken from the outside is available, a new idea as powerful as any in history would be let loose, and it was. And then, of course, this is what every politician needs to experience. They need to drag them out 250,000 miles away from the earth and say, look at that, you son of a bitch, because this is what we're messing with, and this is why. So I want you all to put in the chat some things about why you care about this topic and about why you attended this meeting. I'm going to interact with you guys through the chat room by asking you questions during this presentation, and I hope you'll kind of respond and answer with me, because I'm sincerely interested in what you have to say. So go ahead and put why you care in the chat, and that will help me kind of shape my words and my responses to you to later during this talk. So as I mentioned, we have all these polycrises. We have climate change and natural resource decline and all the wars and suffering that's going on today, and even uncontrolled tech, which we, these are existence type of crises, and we are living in them, with them, through history. So even beyond that, the Earth is going through changes. There's, Arctic ice that may never come back again for a long time, unless big volcanoes explode and the Earth turns into a snowball and the ice, Arctic freezes over. Again, the Antarctic, one of the biggest ice glaciers, pieces of ice in the Antarctic is melting like 400 times faster than they thought. Amazon, I mean, we all know all these crises, and yet here we are conducting our business as if there's no tomorrow. There is a tomorrow, and the tomorrow will be different than today. We are entering a period of volatility and uncertainty. We're overstepping planetary boundaries because of our emissions and our pollution. There's 9 tipping points that have recently been identified, and we're basically close to or overstepping 6 of them. So it's a wicked problem, and a wicked problem is defined as a problem that's difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements, often difficult to recognize. And we can all say that this is a wicked problem, and it's basically non-linear. It's not a linear problem. So you have to come at it from an idea of complexity, not just the linear type of problem solving that we have been doing to date. But I want to shift gears a little bit away from the problem and talk about the solution. And I hope that through this presentation, you'll be able to see some things that maybe have been invisible to you prior to this. And I've had several of these so-called epiphanies and shifts in my life. And this is something that I want you to experience in this presentation as well, because I believe when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So what I'm trying to say is that perspective is so important. And I want you to put in the chat now, what is sustainable, or what does sustainability mean to you? Because we're going to discuss sustainability next. And I want to kind of compare and contrast what the current state is of in you guys with what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat what you think is sustainability. And they're just rough thoughts. I'm not asking for complete sentences. Just do your best at kind of answering that question. What do you think is sustainability, and what is sustainable? So this is human culture. I mean, there's all kinds of life on this planet, but human culture, it is a lot of these things. It's our attitudes, it's our rituals, it's our religion, it's our language, it's our way we eat food and art and all these things, beliefs. But at the core of it, culture is behavior. And so I say that sustainability is a new culture. It's a new set of behaviors. And that includes philosophy, the values, the principles, the standards, the rules, the practices and behaviors, but different from any other type of culture that to date that humans have adopted. Well, perhaps just our recent culture, our economics of destruction, it is in service to, and actually is supposed to create life and help life continue. That's the number one design principle of sustainability, is that it supports and is in support of the design of life. And so I want you to also see what you think of business. What do you think business is? And so I'm going to back up a little bit and say, okay, we just talked about sustainability and sustainable, and now we're going to talk about business, and next we're going to talk about leadership. So get prepared to answer these questions. And I want to know from you, though, what do you think business is? You know, what does it mean for humans to be in business, or to be doing business, or conducting business? I've just now spoken to you about sustainability being a culture and a set of behaviors. So what is business? What do you think business is? Is this business? So this is one of Herb Conne's paintings of the moment or the day that Captain Cook in Kealakekua met the indigenous Kanaka. Is this business? I would say, if you study history and you read David Corton, this is pure business, especially on the side, on the right-hand side, on the Resolution side, because that ship is a corporation. It's a crown charter that was sent into the so-called New World to go and bring back the riches and the knowledge of the rest of the world to the crown. So this is the beginning of industrial business, or at least very close to the beginning. So yes, in my view, this is business. And yet it's got this unseen type of thing. It's a painting. We look at it and say, oh, it's kind of historical. I love seeing Kealakekua without any houses. You know, oh, look at that old boat. Look at that old canoe. Look at that. Look at those red and, you know, but in fact, there's a hidden agenda going on here. And so business has that agenda. And to date, from industrialism standpoint, the only agenda of business is to make profit for the owners. And so I'm now starting to refer to or infer to sustainable and business, trying to bring those together and show you that sustainable business is different from this profit business that we've engaged in to date. And so let's see here, this is a build. So I've done a compare and contrast of industrial business on the right, or maybe it's on your left, and sustainable business on the other side. And industrial business is only concerned about growth and financializing natural capital and producing products and services and goods that can be sold for profit. It's concerned with quantity and mechanistic processes and competitiveness. In other words, we got to outdo each other. We got to become more and more competitive or profitable. Productivity, we got to keep increasing productivity without end. And these last two are some of the most important ones, but I'm not going to go into them that much. I want you to ask me what these mean later on. Industrial business means allocation and intra-generational wants, where sustainable business is concerned about development. And by that, I mean the development, the increasing potential of the person and the natural world. It's concerned with the not growth, but development, the potential, the improvement. And it's concerned with natural capital. It says, how can we preserve, protect, and restore natural capital? It's concerned with process, not products. It's concerned with quality, not quantity. And it sees things as a system view. And it believes that it is in collaboration with nature to achieve the potential, not the highest productivity, but the highest potential. And again, these last two, scale, distribution, allocation, in that order, sustainable business chooses scale first. It says, how big should this be? And then it says, how should we distribute it to those who need it the most? And only then does it say, okay, now who's going to allocate this? And intergenerational needs, and that is a very loaded, the last one is the most important one in my view, because it says, if you are going to concern yourself with sustainability, you have to think about the needs of children who are not yet born. And that is not at all what we're doing today. Not at all. So this industrialist, Ray Anderson, who wrote this book, a very good book, one of the very first entrepreneurs and business persons I have heard of, other than maybe Chouinard of Patagonia. But this guy was making carpets. And he turned his company around, became a believer in sustainability, came to Hawaii and talked to us in 2009 or 10. And he asked the question, from a business standpoint, what is the business case for ending life on Earth? And of course, the answer to that is there's no business case for all of us. There's some business case for a few of us, in the case of billionaires and trillionaires who probably would be protected should life cease to exist the way it currently does. And so now I want to ask you, what is leadership? Because we're going to put all three of them together, and we're going to explore that a little bit more in the coming moments. So go ahead and put in the chat, what is leadership? What is leadership to you? What are the qualities? Who is a leader? How do they get their leadership? Where does it come from? Are you a leader? And how? And what? So qualities of leadership I'm more looking for here. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and throw up a couple slides that illustrate what I think leadership is. And so we're going to talk about goals a little later, specifically the Sustainable Development Goals. But in this case, this slide points out that it's never about the role. It's not about your title. It's about your behavior, how you treat others, and what goals you're aspiring and inspiring others to. So it's not about the role, it's about the goal. And can you help people to see that? And then the other aspect of leadership, which hits on the intergenerational aspect of sustainability, is that you, if you're a leader, should be bringing along other leaders. A long time ago, a mentor of mine once said to me, he gave me 5 rules for radicals. Of course, this was like Saul Alinsky type stuff, but he said to me, the most important one is that you train your replacement. How many of us have trained our replacements in this life? Well, those of us who have kids are doing that, right? But as activists or, people who are in community and involved in developing community, how many times are we able to have the gift of training our replacements? I find it extremely rare. And so I just want to say that for me, this is another quality of a leader, is that they create more leaders. All right, so quick slide about leadership styles. Now I'm going to ask you, what leadership style are you? Now, you may have one that's not on this slide, but if you don't know that answer, then choose one from this slide. For example, I think I'm more of a servant leader. I'm the eldest of 11 kids. I've been in service to other people all my life. I have mixtures of the others, but I believe that really I'm a servant leader. So go ahead and put your, exactly. So, I see servant leader, I see charismatic, I see transformational, I see, we all know who's a transactional leader when we meet them. They are solely concerned about themselves. We know a laissez-faire leader, that's just go along to get along. The interactional is in the middle because they have connections to all of these types. All right, so I see informal, laid back. I love it. Thanks, Jerry. So then this is sustainability leadership capability framework developed by a woman in Arlotea. And this is her idea of what a sustainable leader, the characteristics that they have. They are collaborative. They have a shared purpose and they create a shared purpose and a vision. They are focused on sustainability. They have some capability to do storytelling because our human brains are wired for storytelling. They know how to embed practices and behaviors and culture into their teams. But most of all, they are a systems thinker. And by that, they mean they have this broad, wide ability to see patterns and the way things interact. And this is the number one quality of a sustainable leader. And again, sustainable business leadership is the title of this presentation. So by reference, I'm incorporating it there. So if you don't mind, again, I'm being very interactive with you. I want you to see if you can come up with an example of a practice or a leadership activity you've implemented, or something else you've done, even an aspiration. It doesn't have to be something you've done. Just what do you aspire to when it comes to your influence in today's world? And it doesn't have to be with business, but so let me clarify about business. I forgot to say something. For me, when I'm talking about business, I'm talking about the sum total of human activities. Everything we do is business. The business of the human is what I call business. And in general, even our building our houses, flushing our toilet, our wastewater, all of this is the business of the human. And so that's why I use the broadest possible framework for the definition of human business. And indeed, I have a right or a factual basis for that, because it is all of those activities that are causing the pollution and the problems and the polycrises we have today. So again, I want you to just know that business for me means all of the activities of the human that are negatively impacting our world. So let's talk a little bit, now let's put it all together and let's really define what is sustainability really mean in this world today. Where did the word sustainability come from? Well, it's been used as far back as the 1900s, but really it came to popular use in 1987 with the Brundtland Commission. And this book, Our Common Future, was the beginning of what eventually became the Millennium Development Goals, and then today the Sustainable Development Goals. And what's coming in the future beyond the Sustainable Development Goals are business standards and practices that are going to be regulations put on business for reporting their sustainability progress. And so I'm just going to show you that timeline a little bit later, but this is where it started with the Brundtland Commission. But there are two or more different types of flavors of sustainability. There's this triple bottom line that we are trying to practice today, where we're not just putting our focus on profit, but we're putting on people and planet as well. So we're trying to have a so-called triple bottom line. But the problem with that is that natural capital, we're still destroying natural capital in order to satisfy the needs or the wants of this generation. But there is a strong sustainability. The strongest sustainability is a regenerative business aligned to nature, where natural capital is restored and humans are uplifted. It is the lowest cost and the highest payoff type of business activity. Because after all, we've done a lot of damage. There's a lot of business in restoring the planet. A lot of need for that. So let's look at, I'm going to talk about some models. This is the weak sustainable business model, where it says sustainability is practiced at the intersection of people, profits, and planet. But what you don't see here is what's the relative size of, or the importance or the priority of planet, people, and profits. And you actually see an equal balancing. And when you hear the words, oh, we need to balance people with profits and planet, what you're hearing is somebody saying we need to adhere to this model because it's the lowest common denominator. It's the least thing. It's the thing we think we can achieve because it's the lowest bar. And that's without that scale, without knowing what's the priority, what's the importance of the people and planet compared to the profits one, we won't have a practice of a sustainable business, a strong sustainable business. So here's what we call a stronger sustainable business. That's that the whole planet is our boundary. The viability of all the processes on the planet is our standard. And okay, our people have gone from 500,000 to 8.5 billion over the last 100 years or 200 years. And okay, there's some scale, but the economy is really should be of smaller footprint than the planet's boundaries. The planet should have enough regenerative capacity to completely regenerate its functions from day to day and moment to moment and year to year. And currently we're running out of that. All right. I got a phone call. I should have. Okay. So, and by that, I mean the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. And this is Herman Daly. You might want to look at this. And by this, I mean the size and scale of the economy should be a servant to the boundaries and viability of the environment, not the reverse. And only then will we have sustainable business. Okay, so let's look at what this looks like. Industrial business and nature's business. I'm doing another comparison. We're talking about energy. Again, we're talking about growth. And we're talking about waste and competition and collaboration and diversity and homogeneity. And we all know what diversity and homogeneity means. It means what we're experiencing today in America with the culture wars. And this one is the most important. Industrial business believes that there's no limit. There's an infinite supply of resources available on a finite planet. And so we're going to exploit till we overshoot, and we'll deal with it when it gets there. And then some of us will die and everything else and all around us will die. But nature's business says, okay, let's have limits to everything, actually. All right. And the native people had this correctly. And when I say think like an Ahupua'a, what I mean is think in systems. Because the Ahupua'a is a system of systems, from the mountains to the sea. We all know that living here in Hawaii. And the native people had konehiki, or stewards, who were the regulators. So even in those times, there were regulators on the activity and the businesses of humans. Oops, I don't know what happened to that one. Oh, there we go. So this was just a little bit more about konehiki. Excuse me. Again, regulators, the resource manager, and the knowledge bearers. And we have some of that here in Hawaii, but it's not broadly known or practiced, the konohiki of the natural world or even of our own culture. So the number one thing that business can do is be like nature. And this is the design principle that I referred to earlier. Rivers don't drink their own water, trees don't eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine for itself. A flower's fragrance is not for itself. Living for each other is the rule of nature. And that should be our business philosophy. And where this came from is because when the settlers arrived, or even when Neolithic Neanderthals started interacting with Homo sapiens, there was an empty world. And in America, it was the vision of the cowboy that has driven our economic philosophy, where the cowboy says, hey, it's an empty world. I can do whatever I want, have all my freedom. I don't have to answer to anybody else. I can exploit things as I want. And that becomes the actor, the atom of our economic system. And in reality, we have a full world where the spaceman is in the spacecraft with billions of other people, and we have to depend on each other. And so there's this tension between these two philosophies. And I believe that, and we believe, I think, those of us, even though I'm speaking to the choir, the people in this call, that we are interconnected with the well-being of everyone, but still that's the greatest illusion that our economic policies seek to promulgate, is that we are not connected. So this was just a kind of a transition slide. So this is what I referred to as an empty world. This is one of the foundational principles of sustainable business. This is Lahaina about 300 years ago. Empty world, very few people, low footprint. And so the scale and indeed the footprint is very small on the earth. I don't have a current picture of Lahaina before the fire, so I choose one of Waikiki because it's the most built up. But today we have a full world. And the reason we have a full world is because we have more people, and the business of the people is much bigger, and its footprint is indeed destructive. Footprint. So that core principle of sustainable business is, what's your footprint? Well, your footprint is equal to the people times their affluence times the power of their technology. So do you know any examples of sustainable business leadership? Now, recognizing that sustainable business in the current practice is not fully sustainable, perhaps, but what businesses are trying to practice sustainable business leadership that you know of? So I spoke earlier about the goals. I'm going to start wrapping up here. I'm going to skip some of the slides I have ahead. But in case you haven't heard, these are the business goals. These are the goals that humanity has to achieve in order to lower our footprint and be more equitable and restore and preserve the earth. And these 17 goals come out of that Brundtland Commission report that I talked about, that long transition. And then what's upcoming with respect to these goals is incorporation into rules and regulations and practices that are going to be part of the regulatory framework for business going forward, even here in Hawaii. So here's 10 things that business must focus on to help achieve these goals. And they're trying to set a time frame of 2030. So these are general goals, but there's related and interconnected activities associated with these. And you notice scale, expand, transform. And then the number 1 is recommit to the basics. And the number 10 is strengthen sustainability leadership. And that's what I'm trying to do with this presentation, is strengthen everyone's understanding of sustainability leadership so they can hold our people and our practices to a higher standard. Benefit corporations, or B Corps, are a really important piece of it. If you have a business and you want to be more sustainable, this is one way to do it. Here's some social benefit companies in Hawaii. Some of these are a little surprising. Other ones are right on. I mean, the Hawaiian Legacy Reforestation Initiative has been around for a long time. So is Kokua, Maui Brewing. They're B Corps. They've committed to that. Here's a GRI, global. GRI is it's a kind of a sustainable council that helps businesses and governments monitor and measure their activities. So I'm giving you some tools now. So in my view, this is what I can come up with. There's uncertainty all around us. I don't know if humanity is going to achieve these goals, or whether there's going to be, there's three futures that are kind of hypothesized as possible. One is collapse. The other is just muddle along and live, don't change much, and go from crisis to crisis. And the third is transformation, and where we actually practice these things. But much of it depends on business. If you look at the center of the screen, it's up to us as the Chamber for Sustainable Commerce and our influence in the society. It's up to us to raise the standards and raise the awareness and raise the practice of leadership. And so I encourage you to get out there and become a sustainable business leader. Because after all, in The Hobbits, these were just like two ordinary playful guys, you know, like us, who like play and enjoy the life of Hawaii, but they made a big change. And the kings and warriors and wizards could only play a supportive role. And so that's what I'm hoping the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce will become, is like these two little hobbits. Because you're needed. And the last, I always like this slide. I always leave it for the end, because it's not something I want you to answer in the chat, but you can if you want. But the more we talk about our vision, the more people will be inspired to discuss and lift up each other to become a sustainable business leader. And so any business people, anybody at all, I offer you my number and contact, so you can, you can call me, take a screenshot of this screen, or ask the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce for my contact information. I'm happy to talk to you. And that's my presentation. Thank you. And I have a bunch of tools and all that I can give you that I pulled out of the main presentation because it would have taken too long to go over them.
Wow. Mahalo, Rob. That was excellent. That was truly excellent. I learned a lot. I was trying to screenshot as fast as I could. And I can't believe how much information was packed in such a small space, especially with a lot of the visuals. So I don't know if anyone has questions or wants to comment, but please feel free, raise your hand or unmute yourself. There's not too many of us that we can't do that. So would love to hear your comments. This is going to be the first of probably a couple of these that I hope that Rob will do, because he is super knowledgeable and can really help us all grow into sustainable business leaders. And this is going to be a great journey for sure. This is going to be fun. I'm very Hobbit-like. I don't have hairy feet, but I'm pretty Hobbit-like. So I'm super excited. Let's see what Joy said. How do you become a member of the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce? I will email you. I will give you our link after this. Let's see. Thanks, Rob. Your continued enthusiasm after all these years warms my heart. I'm a little retired from activism right now, but love being here, being here today. Yes, thank you, Joy. I agree. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, we do have some in-person gatherings planned. Jerry, I believe you're on Maui. So our next event, I believe, is going to be July 22nd. That is coming up. That's going to be a Pauhana mixer. And details will be coming out soon about that. We also have one on June 20th in Waikiki. And and then the next one on Oahu is in July. And we have one in Hilo and coming up in July as well. Rob, do you have any closing thoughts and more inspiration? I think one of the biggest takeaways I got is that this is not a linear problem. And this truly is an age of consequences. And we need to really start getting that message out there. This is not just about that we're 90 seconds to midnight. We are living in an age of consequences that are not just going to affect us. They are going to affect our children, our children's children, and many generations to come. And I just appreciate everybody who's here. Please also get out there and help us get more members. So anyone in business, please also share this presentation. I will get it up on the website, hopefully tonight. This is exactly right, Rob. Leadership isn't about winning. It's bringing people with us to the finish line. And the more people, the more fun it's going to be. So.
Well, I want to thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I got my hand raised. I didn't know if it's visible. Yeah, thank you, Rob. Nice to see you again. Tanya, are you going to save the chat as well as the audio visual for this?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that I did that. So, because that was excellent. There's a lot of good comments in there. I will cut and paste them all right now if I can, so that we will have those. I don't know if I can do that. I know there's another way to do it too. So the recording is on. The recording is on. So my hope is that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's the nature of my personality and my education and experience, I guess. So I was going to ask you to save the comments, and what I had to say might be a good focus for a future meeting of this group, although it's probably a little ahead of where most people are at right now. But I actually think it's important to stretch people's thinking about this, broaden it and stretch it, right? Even though they're saying, well, this is irrelevant to me, day to day getting through my life or my business or my job or whatever. But I hope Rob would agree with that, because I could hear him channeling Art Watley a lot, and Art Watley and Jim Dater overlap in quite a few ways too. So, but yeah, it gets beyond I've been a fan of B Corps for a long time. I work with employee stock ownership, all of which I think we have potential. And Kim has heard me say this before. One thing I would like to see, but even this is pushing the envelope, I think, for the Sustainable Chamber at its current point of progress, is for years there have been very generous federal tax incentives for small and medium-sized privately owned business people who have no succession plan, like no business partners or no family willing or able to take over their businesses. And these federal incentives, if only more people knew about them, and Kim knows her own family sold Roberts Hawaii to their employees, which I like to use as kind of a shining example of how we could do this locally. There's a Hawaii Business Magazine article from a couple of years ago. I share it quite a bit. It's about this very thing, like TNT Tinting, Tommy Silva, who you see on TV all the time. They just went to employee ownership. It's a way to not only perpetuate small and medium locally owned businesses, and we have thousands of them, right? But by converting them to employee owned, not only there are healthy tax breaks and incentives for the retiring owners to do so, we keep the money, the profits, and the jobs. Otherwise, businesses like that often just go out of business, or some hedge fund shark comes in and buys them up and breaks them up for parts, right? And to hell with the local jobs and the local profits, right? So that's another thing I'd like to add to the more immediate menu of sustainable chamber priorities. And we can talk about that at a future time. And I can share that Hawaii Business article with anybody who'd like to see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. And thank you, Jerry, for showing me how to save the chat. That was really helpful. Anybody else have any comments? I really want to thank everybody for attending. Please share. Yes, John, I will send you information on the chamber and how you can become a member. That's John. Let's see.
I would
Okay.
just like to say mahalo, Tanya, for all that you do to get us together. And it's just, it's wonderful. And I'm looking so forward to more and more. Let's make a difference.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Let's make a difference together.
Thank you, Rob. That was wonderful.
Thank you. I was also, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say thank you to Tanya at the very end. And I'm deeply grateful for our conversations and meeting you and for your encouragement. Thank you.
I maybe we could just wrap up a little bit, because one of the things that inspired me about Rob was when he said that sustainability is a process that stems from and for human change. Or maybe, am I like garbling that, Rob? But maybe you could just talk a little bit more about that, because that is going to kind of be the basis for some of our future talks as well.
Yeah, I mean, is there an echo?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay, good. It is on my side. Sustainability came out of the belief that we can do better. I mean, there's no two ways about it. We can do better. And so the belief that humans have a better way to practice our lives and our activities is not new. It's a philosophy, it's embedded in philosophy. And so sustainability is really the accumulation of indigenous knowledge as well as Western bumblings and fumblings around with what isn't good for the planet, and to show ourselves that we know something about what is good for the planet. And because Western civilization is only 600 years old, Industrial Revolution started about 650 years ago, and it's not as old as the 20,000 years that indigenous people lived on the continent, or the thousands of years that they lived in the islands. So it's no wonder we're behind. But in the same breath, we're going about it, by back-asswards, and according to Native people's perspectives, really stupid way. And so sustainability is really, for me, it's provided me a framework to be able to discuss how I believe that we have a choice to change and we have the potential. And there's both of those are well within our power if we just say so and act and behave so. Yeah.
Right. I love that image you put up on the sustainability leadership capability framework, where there was like 7 components of the sustainability mindset. Because I think if as business owners and sustainable, future sustainability leaders, we can figure out which ones we're best at in those, and that's how we know what role we're going to be playing and which ones, we want to get better at to kind of move ahead as fast as possible. Because I really liked how this is all broken up. I don't know if that's your original information that you put out, or if that comes from someone else, but I would love to know what book it came from, if it came from a book, and who's thought that up.
Right. So you're talking about the circle with the capability framework.
Yeah, it had like systems thinking, collaborating, storytelling, and influence.
That's nothing new,
Right.
but it was put together by a woman in Aotearoa who writes about this. And this is her, and I follow her. And so I used her slide because, I mean, I would have other things in there, but I really like hers. And one of the other things you noticed about my slides is a lot of circles. And a circle is a metaphor and a message for connection. And so in my native tradition, there's a wheel of life. And I'm going to introduce that in a future presentation if that's possible. And the wheel of life is and describes the connection between who we were, who we are, and who's around us. And so wheels are very important in sustainability. I wrote a paper on that when I was going through school about how sustainability can largely be visualized through circles.
Interesting. That's
so
really
yes.
Thank you. I would love to get her name because I would like to share this image and be able to, credit. Carl had a question. What is the motivation to move towards sustainability versus status quo?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's another thing. The way I framed it in today's presentation was that it's an existential imperative. But it's also, as we saw, actually, I didn't show this part of it, was what's coming after the goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are now being concretized into regulations for business. And so what's coming, that's another presentation, is the EU framework for sustainable development goes into effect in 2025, January 1st, 2025, for the European Union. And it's coming here. The SEC just approved our own framework for sustainable business in the US. It goes into effect 2028. So we're, a little bit slow to the game, and our regulations are looser. So America is not as strong as Europe in this, but this is coming for business. So there's a emotional and immeasurable existential imperative, and there's a business standards, rules, regulations, laws imperative. ISO 2022, ISO International Standards Organization that sets the standards for all businesses in the world has a sustainability imperative in it. So it's coming for all products and services, supply chains, up and down, carbon emissions, everything is going to be regulated from those goals standpoint to achieve those goals.
Right. So I see Carl said, so regulatory requirements. So I just have a comment on that. So to me, sustainability is the road to peace, because sustainability is about caring for each other. It's about caring for the environment. It's about it's just taking care and intention in everything we do. And so that is the road to peace, which is actually how Rob and I started talking, I think, was about what's so important to both of us is how do we have a more peaceful world, which seemed possible when I was 5, 10, and maybe even 15. And today it seems a lot more challenging, but we're actually a little bit closer, I think. It just seems that we're farther away from that.
Yeah, we're spinning and spiraling around this concept of, we are all one. And sometimes we're orbiting farther away and other times we're closer. Right now we seem very far away. But if we can all agree on this, if we can all agree that we have a common shared future, that we have common set of values and principles, that we can behave and conduct business, if we can do it through business, because everybody believes in business. Again, business and faith are two of the largest networks on the planet. Faith says care for creation. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
And business says let's all work together for mutual benefits. So those two, if we can get them on board with sustainability, then we're a lot closer to peace.
All
in my
right.
view. All right, thank you.
I think so. I hope we're all leaving on a note of hope and inspiration. Mahalo, Kim Coco Iwamoto, HAPA, Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action, Rob Kinslow, and the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce.